Hey everyone, it's me. It's so good to be providing you with an art therapy session despite the fact that we're not together, which is really unfortunate. But I am really happy, I'm really excited that we still get to provide you with a service. And so I'm going to do my best to provide you with a digital art therapy session. Now, our previous art therapy sessions were very non-directive. We would do our dinner and our check-in, and then I'd often provide you with a theme, which had to do with parenting. I know that we've talked a lot about the dualities of parenting. There can be a lot of love and a lot of joy and amazement and curiosity and amazing feelings, coupled with very difficult feelings of loss of independence and struggling to maintain structure, and anxiety, lots of different things, right? Now, this time period, us being, having COVID-19 and all the different factors associated with it, certainly makes our lives more challenging. It can make parenting more challenging. And so I'd like us to go through that a little bit in this session. And so although I might have been non-directive before, this session, just because we're not together and I'm not there, will be a bit more directive. So I'll provide some steps. So feel free to pause me to watch the whole thing and then do the art therapy exercise, whatever works for you. Just a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into it any further is that this is an exercise, not art therapy. So for art therapy to be taking place, there should be a qualified art psychotherapist or art therapist present with clinical parameters in place, such as the confidentiality piece, the boundaries of time, and the privacy of space. So this is more of a helpful exercise. It's not designed to replace professional treatment, but the image that you do create today, we can explore it later, and I will provide an alternative time for each of you for us to talk and process the image that you end up making. And like I've said before, you don't need to be skilled at art. You don't even need to have a talent for art making. Your image doesn't need to be attractive nor unattractive. We're not looking for that like how one would in just a general art class. So the art making really here is for you to express yourself, to process feelings as best you can, in support of whatever your therapeutic goals might be, okay? So let's talk a little bit about what my theme is for today, which is circle of control. So I will use my diagram that I have. And let's bring up my diagram and let's share it with you. Okay, so here, you may have seen this before, the circle of no control, and then the inner part of the circle, which is the circle of control. And so when I look at this, a couple of things come to mind. One thing is that it looks very much like a very simplistic mandala, which maybe you've heard of before, and we'll get into that in a little later. So let's talk a little bit about the circle of no control. That's the outer bit, and sometimes that's what keeps most of our attention. And so obviously with COVID-19, all the things that go with it are very much within this outer circle. What's outside of our control is COVID-19, it's the curfew, it's the fact that people are taking things and hoarding items and we're not having, access as readily access to our normal lives and to the supermarket and so forth, right? And so that is very much outside of our control, but it is very much a part of our concerns right now. And so with that, there's kind of like a spectrum. And on this side, there's people that take uncertainty. There's a lot of tolerance that they have for uncertainty. and for loss of control, and they can remain quite calm throughout that. And on the other spectrum, there's people that very stressed out, they get very overwhelmed with the uncertainty. There's a lot of intolerance with uncertainty, and so they develop a lot of stress-related illnesses, right? And so we can kind of come into the middle a little bit, because of course we're going to experience stress, we're going to experience anxiety, we're going to experience different things, right? And our response might be very different to someone else's. Even people that are very similar to us might react in different ways to what's going on, right? And it's not to shove those feelings under the carpet, it's actually to take a look at those, examine those, process those, and then do our best to refocus our mind and our actions and our feelings to the circle of control, which is on the inside, right? And these are the things that we can do. So despite all the things that are going on with COVID-19 and the curfew and the limitations to our lives, we do have a circle of control in how we can maintain our healthy lives, what we're eating, what we're doing, who we're talking to, what we're talking about, if we're having a little bit of exercise every day. And it could be something as simple as having a daily goal. Maybe it's a daily parenting goal. So I might say to myself, okay, what I do have in my control today is to spend an hour with my son, and we're going to play, and we're going to do lots of fun things, and I'm going to make sure that my phone is off, there's no TV, and it's just me and him, and we're having that quality parenting time. That could just be a small goal that I have each day, and it keeps me empowered, it keeps me in control, it keeps me feeling less stressed. It helps in those ways. And then I can have a personal goal too, that, you know, I'll make sure that the laundry gets done today. I'll make sure that I do some sort of personal task every day, working on my resume in your case, or some other YPS task, right? So let's come back to here. Oops. How do I unshare? Stop share, okay. Getting used to the Zoom technology, okay. So now that we've talked about that, I want you pretty much, what you probably are realizing, is to gather some simple materials is fine. Obviously, we would have had big paper and some nice paints and brushes and things like that if we were in the office. However, you might just have some simple items around the house, some paper, some scrap paper is fine, some crayons, whatever you have around the house. Gather those together, and then we'll get into the next step. And you can pause me if you need to, that's fine. Okay, so share again. How do I share again? So I'm going to share my screen again. So here, so you might have seen or heard the name Mandala before. And so mandalas look very much like this or like this. You know, they can be very intricate, but some, especially when they're self-made mandalas, can look a lot like this. So this has a lot of personal symbolism for this person. Here's another one that's quite simple. And this is probably one that you might have seen from coloring books and things like that. This is another self-made mandala. Another one very simple and just focused on color and line. And so the next step of this is to really consider the circle of no control. as well as the circle of your control. So you want to make images and colors and lines and whatever you want to do. You make a large circle and put all those feelings and those images into this. You can be very explicit and write it down if you want to, or you can write it down later, that's fine. But you really want to focus on getting in touch with the thoughts and the feelings associated with all the things that are outside of our control right now, right? All the things outside of our control are the curfew, the lack of external normalcy, all of those things. Really think about those, close your eyes, you can take a few deep breaths and just focus on some of the thoughts and the feelings that have been going through your mind as of late, right? And then when you've done that, which you can pause me here if you want to go ahead and do the art making with that now, and fill that outer circle up with colors and images associated with all those feelings and thoughts. And then once you're done, you want to come into the inner circle and think about all the things that you are in control of, that you can really focus your attention on, that can empower you, strengthen you, and make you feel like you do have a sense of normalcy throughout what might seem like chaos, okay? And so when you're done, so you can pause me and go ahead and focus on those images. And then once you're done, some processing questions that you can write down. You can simply just think about these as I say them. You can write them down, or like I said, I will give a time slot for each of you to, that I can give you a call if you agree to, and we can discuss your images a little bit more, because it is a big part of art therapy. Obviously, if you do have that verbal ability to kind of process your images further, it's not a requirement of art therapy, but it can be very useful to process those thoughts and feelings with a clinician, okay? So, number one processing question could be, you're looking at your image. Now, if your image could speak to you, what would it say? So think about what your image is really trying to tell you. So if it could talk and it could call your name, maybe it might feel a little silly at first, but just look at your image and think of it calling your name and really telling you what it wants to say. Okay, so take some time and write that down. Now another question could be looking and really focusing on the outer section of the image, right? That part that is outside of your control. That might look very different to the inner section. So maybe focus on the outer section for a little bit and think about, how does it make you feel? What are all the images and feelings associated with it? So obviously feelings not just bad or good, you know, get really deep with it and think, okay, it makes me feel really anxious to look at it. I feel frustrated looking at it. I feel overwhelmed. It makes me stressed. Or maybe it doesn't make you feel those things. It actually, you feel a little calmer now that you're seeing it in this context. Maybe you feel a bit more curious about the feelings and where they're really coming from. So you could feel a real plethora of feelings that are very opposing to one another, and that's absolutely fine. And so think about that outer image for a little bit, the outer part of your mandala, and think about what you can do to manage these feelings of the outer part, the bits that are outside of your control. How can you manage those feelings? What are some practical things you can do? Do you need to journal about your loss of control right now? Do you need to practice some deep breathing when these feelings become very overwhelming? Do you need to refocus and look at the intersection to redirect, to ground yourself? So looking at that outer section, what is it? How can this help you, right? So, and it differs from person to person. For me, I would like to be able to process outwardly. I like to talk to people that I trust, that I care about, that aren't going to really give me any toxic information back. They're going to be helpful and supportive. So sometimes we don't have those people in our lives, and so that's why a counselor or someone that's a professional can come in handy. But to process those feelings and to kind of think about those a little bit, just have someone listen to you can be really good. So when you're done with that, go ahead and look at the intersection of your mandala. Now, how does that make you feel? Is it very different to the outer part? The intersection, of course, is an image that's representative of how you do feel, how you are feeling when it comes to feeling in control, the things that you're in control of, right? And that can be, you're in control of the way you parent right now. You're in control of the way you approach your day. If you're exercising or not, you're really in charge of your own self and your own actions, right? Now, the feelings that are associated with the inner part, it can make you, maybe it's not that very different to the outer part, or maybe it is. Maybe it makes you feel a bit calmer. Maybe you feel like, you know what, I feel strong looking at it. It does make me feel in control because I know I can control these parts. So maybe it's exuding feelings like that. And if it is, how can you magnify those feelings? How can you continue to feel strong, continue to feel in control, right? And like I said earlier, you know, do you need to create a daily goal that magnifies that sense of control? You know, even something very simple, like at the end of the day, you looking back and knowing that you achieved your very small goal for the day can give you a real sense of accomplishment, and it keeps you in control, okay? So those are some processing questions to go through now that you've finished your image. And feel free to take a picture of your image and send it to me. Send it back to the email that I sent this video through to you. And any questions, any comments about this exercise, feel free. All right, so thank you for your time. I hope you found this a bit helpful. And so what we can do now that we've been recording for a few minutes is we can close our eyes, kind of like the painting behind me. We're going to close our eyes, and we're going to, maybe we're sitting, if you're sitting or lying down, and just do some deep breathing and just close off the session with some deep breathing and just being mindful in this moment and just focusing on our breath and nothing else, just our breath, just the way maybe our body feels, and that's it, okay? So let's close our eyes, get comfortable where we're sitting. You want to take a deep breath in and out, a deep breath in and out. Third one. Fourth one. Fifth one. And now you want to just kind of go through your body. You can go through very slowly from your head going down all the way to your feet, taking your time at each body part to kind of explore and just see how you feel. If you feel a little tense, you can wiggle around, you can tense your muscles and then release them. So you're scanning your body, maybe at your chest, maybe at your abdomen. Keep going down all the way to your legs. You can stretch your legs out. Stretch your feet. And take another few deep breaths. Just focus on your breathing. Don't think about anything else. Okay, let's do 2 more. One more. Okay, so you can open your eyes. You're back in the room, and you can slowly start to bring your attention back to things in the room, but hopefully that was a nice mindfulness exercise, a simple relaxation exercise, and that you're feeling good. And so thank you so much. This was fun, even though you weren't here with me. And I look forward to when we next get to be together in person and have a real art therapy session. So thank you so much, and I hope you find this helpful.